Ben, Janine,
We are
Al, y'all here. All right. All right. We're on the air, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, welcome. And welcome to everyone to our third day of the Forum on Student Members and Chapters. Obviously, they saved the worst for last. They ran out of good speakers, so they found me. So we're going to try to have a little bit of fun today, and welcome one and all. Before we even get started, I would like to invite my friend and Lieutenant Colonel Ben Wallen to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ben.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very, very much. So here we are on day 3. And they told me this was going to be one of the tougher of the 3 topics. So I'm going to challenge everybody to work with me and make liars out of them that said that this was going to be a difficult topic. So our general topic is transitioning from a student member to a professional member. And that's me, my ugly mug, all dressed up with some place to go. And very, very glad to have Ben Wallen with me, Lieutenant Colonel from West Point. And Ben will jump in quite a bit to illustrate the live relationship that the New York City Post, of which I've been the Post Secretary for over 30 years. You might ask, 30 years as the Post Secretary, how could that be? The answer to that question is I've been told that they're going to keep re-electing me until I get it right. So there you have it, 30 years as the Post Secretary. Ben is the chair who sits on the board of directors of the Post of the West Point Affairs Committee, and he also serves as the chapter lead at the West Point Post. So we're going to inject a lot of real life, what we've been doing in the hopes that we're going to stimulate all of you with examples that you can, take home and try, or give, we'll give you an opportunity to jump in and say, listen, I think you're all wet. We have a better idea, and have opportunities for that. So no holds barred. We're going to go through, I was using an analogy before. I've got a roadmap, and I'm going to try to, take us down a road that I think will answer the basic goal of the presentation. But some of you may along the way say, hey, let's stop and look at that tree off to the side. And we'll stop and we'll pull off to the side. We'll look at the tree, have a little chat, get back on the road, and hopefully head to where we're going. And I also want to welcome Corey Weaver, who's the COI Vice Chair, and I think he's going to be able to really jump in and give us some good feedback from the perspective of someone who has been intimately involved with the student chapters. Do we have, and I'm going to go out to the audience, do we have any West Point cadets with us on the line that I didn't see? And it's okay if not. All right. Any other student chapter members who are on the line with us today? Okay, no problem. If they pop in, we'll bring them into the conversation. So, when I say guest participants are you, I want to make it clear, that as I said, I'm just trying to drive the truck down the road, but I really welcome any feedback as we go through this. And, what I'm going to try to do is set the table for a great conversation with lots of opportunities for you all to jump on in. So what is the primary objective? Why are we here today? What are we trying to do? At the top of our objectives, it is to get transitioning students who are involved in a student chapter to stick around when they graduate and remain members of SAME as professional members in a post. And, some of you might thinking, okay, well, we're going to talk about database systems and how do we track, people and all that. And I'm going to challenge that assumption with something that may not be something you expected. My point of view when I looked at this and I said, how am I going to approach this with the gang? Was to basically say, why would a student member stick around an SAME? And, my answer would be, well, if that student member was having a great time and an enriching experience as a student member, then, trying to get that person to stick around an SAME is going to be a piece of cake. And so the tools that we use later to get that person in are really going to be academic, minor, and, you're going to get them on board. On the other hand, if we have a particular student who's having a miserable time and hated the experience that he or she had, then it doesn't matter what amount of cajoling we do after that student graduates. They're going to run away and say, I've had it with this organization. I'm out of here. So what I'm going to try to do with your help is go through some thoughts and suggestions. And there will be some overlap from the conversation of yesterday, which is to kind of reinforce how we can do well in the student chapter environment to ensure that the most number of student members have had such a great time that they want to stick around with us. So any initial thoughts? Does that kind of make any sense to anybody? Do any of you think that that thought process is all wet? Speak up, because I could talk a mile a minute. All right. Ben, what do you think? How am I doing, Ben?
No, Mike, I think you're spot on. I mean, the big thing is you're exactly right. They're going to want to continue in any organization they're in if they're having an enriching. I love what you said, an enriching time, and it's meaningful. And so we talk about how SAME is a networking opportunity. Last night was club night, and we talked about that. I think we got 39 more freshmen to sign into the club. Now, will they all come? No. But even that, how do we get them to start? It comes from having immediate, upcoming events that aren't months away. So we've got the harbor inspection that's in 3 weeks. We've got touring some local on-post construction with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the 7th of September. It's those events that make it where they sign up for a club, it immediately has payoff of something that they want to do. And then those are reoccurring events that and most of our events actually are partnered with you all, our parent post. And I think those are those enriching collaborative events. So turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, sir. And we're gonna go back to some of those points as a way of any local post trying to enrich the relationship. Corey, anything you want to add? Tell me I'm all wet. Thoughts?
No, my experience too is I agree. I think you have to have students that are looking to be engaged in something. I think SAME is a great avenue for that, for the reasons that you guys have stated of networking, but then also, some professional development as a student by seeing real life construction. So, I mean, you guys have hit it on the head from my standpoint. I can share later as why I have continued throughout the years, which may be a little atypical, but we can get into that later. So.
Sounds great. Well, before I go any further, any housekeeping announcements? I see lots of folks in the chat, and you know what? They're too small on my screen. So, Janine, I'm going to let you. Recap if there's anything in the chat room that we should be mindful of right now.
Okay, right now we've just mostly got people introducing each other, and we will keep an eye on it. I think Marilyn's been our chat monitor, So she will feed you any questions that come about through the chat forum.
Yeah,
All right.
welcome everyone for day 3. If you have questions, wants to just provide feedback or input or experience sharing, and you don't feel comfortable, interjecting, feel free to use the chat. I'll be happy to relay that to the group.
Conversely, I welcome anybody to jump on in. My hope, my intent was that there would not be 2 hours worth of slide lecture. There will be a much shorter period of time so that there's a lot more time for back and forth interaction. That's what I have the most fun with. And Ben can tell you that that's kind of my style, to get people engaged in the conversation. All right, so let's forge ahead. So we have the objective, and I'm an inquisitive sort of fella, so I always ask why. Why do we have this objective? What is the purpose from the perspective of SAME? Why we want these students to stick around with us? And well, this kind of answers the question, at least I think it does. Transitioning students are one of the most natural feeds into a post. You've got the benefit of an individual that has been exposed to SAME. They are in the field of STEM, presumably. Most of them are. They don't have to be, but most of them are. And again, if we gave them an enriching experience in the student chapter, they're going to be freshly invigorated as they come into the local post, which will have hopefully a good post operation will have an active young members committee. And again, just a general familiarity with what SAME stands for means that when they get on board as professional members, they're going to be able to engage a lot more quickly. Any thoughts on that before we move on? All right. And don't worry, I'm going to stop when I really know that there's going to be an opportunity. So that's the goal, and that's the the reason for it. And so how do we figure this all out? How do we look at this from all of our different perspectives? I mean, some of you are on the East Coast, some are on the West Coast, some are in the heartland, some could conceivably be overseas. We all have we have some things in common, but we have a lot of things that are different, so that the one size fits all approach is not going to work. So how do you deal with that? And I ask the question both in terms of the challenge to myself in trying to lead this conversation, as well as trying to offer a proscriptive on how any of you can consider approaching any problem in any forum and making sure that the solution is not one that's forcing a square peg in a round hole. And one of the things I learned, and this is something I learned in my Corps of Engineers days, it's a concept that I have practiced as a high-level manager in the Corps. It's one that I practice even today, and in my post-retirement work with New Jersey Transit, which is the third largest transportation agency in the country. So it's called, very simply, the above the line, below the line approach. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Kind of to set the table, because it's going to come up repeatedly as we go through further things. We're going to intersperse in the conversation for the matter of case studies. I find that I learn much better when I see a case study. So we're going to share with you some of the things that we're actually doing at the New York City Post and the West Point Student Chapter. Not to say you got to do it this way, but to show you one possible way, and then try to break it down into, hey, is this an approach that everybody can do? Is this something that is something to think about, but you are going to do it a little bit differently? And that'll relate back to the above the line, below the line. And as in all of this presentation and discussion, listening to your thoughts and possible solutions. All right, so hopefully that helps a little bit. Again, stop me at any point, just I want to talk, and then I'll shut up and we'll stop. Otherwise, I'll forge ahead. So what is the above the line, below the line process? And it's really simple. It's basically breaking down the solution to any problem into two basic parts. It's being able to prescribe a solution that can have two components. One component being a general guideline that applies to the entire breadth of the organization. And then the below the line means the ability for the organization to tailor that general guideline in a different way. So one very, very simple example is what we're talking about today. Our above the line is, what do we do? What should everybody do to have a successful relationship between a post and a chapter, right? And we can talk about things, well, they should talk to each other. Okay, great. So all posts and all chapters should have regular communications. I think there's nobody that would disagree with that. That would be the above the line. The below the line is the how. So think of the above the line as the what. What do all of us need to do as we approach a problem? And the below the line is the how we do it. With that how being able to vary between different locations. The things that we do in New York, I know are not going to work in Dubuque, Iowa, or most of them won't. So we're going to try to, as we go through all of this discussion, remember that, I'm going to make some suggestions, and I'm going to try to distinguish between general advice that's up here above the line and leaving open the opportunity for all of you to say, well, I do it this way and it works. I do it that way and it works. And this is the approach that that I've been taking along with Ron on the COI as we get together. What we're going to try to do is build an increasingly wide document that has the above the line and the below the line. Okay, does that make sense? Is there anybody that doesn't get that basic concept of above the line, below the line? All right, if I don't hear any screaming, what the heck are you talking about? I will move on to the next slide. All right, hold on a minute. Now I got a frozen mouse here, gang. Oh, there it is, okay. So we're gonna try to set a successful playing field. Now I'm going back to the initial assumption of the resolution of this whole problem. And I consider this slide to be an above the line. I think this is something that would apply to all of us, regardless of our local practices. If we have a situation where the student is experiencing a thriving and successful student chapter that has a rich affiliation with a local post, then this is going to make the transition for that student to be more successful. All right, so applying this to the general above the line, below the line, I would call this above the line. Is there anybody out? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I want to challenge us just to expand this aperture. I see how you're using student chapters, but I would put that as a student chapter / scholarship / mentoring, because I don't want to discount all the students that we're engaging and cultivating outside of the student chapter formula. I think the point is that student chapters or scholarships or mentoring, that there is a component that SAME is bringing into the academic lives of these students, and that should be carried through. That experience should be carried through naturally.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I may, if I happen to list student chapter, that is not intended to convey that that is the exclusive way. I focused on that because only because of our unique ability to be able to speak to real life situations. So you're absolutely right, and I do have examples. This applies to our high school STEM students. I have numerous students that we have sent to summer camp who have enjoyed that experience, and they weren't members of a student chapter, but they went away to camp. They loved it, and because of that experience, they became SAME members. I am in touch with no less than a half a dozen of these students that went to camp over the course of the year. So I totally agree, Eddie. And so even if I don't stop and say, when I say student chapter, I mean all the interactions that we have. What I'm trying to convey is whatever area of interaction where these young members are in, if that interaction experience is good, they're going to come and join SAME. If that interaction or experience is bad, they're going to say, I had enough of this. Okay, does that help a bit, Eddie?
Yes, and I guess I want to just carry it through because the point is for metrics, at some point, and this goes back to a comment Joe made on Monday about it's better to have a smaller group of engaged members than a large group that we know nothing about. And I think for us with the student members, I referenced this on Monday, we're going to want to start segmenting the campers versus scholarship recipients and student chapter participants as people that have different levels of engagement, that we should ideally expect different levels of conversion based on those experiences. So we won't be, we'll just need to be able to assess the different communities of student members in this conversion to professional member.
Yeah,
So
I would agree. I mean, and again, this is just my own gut feeling. I would say that in order from top to bottom, greatest opportunity over time to get the most proportion of a body into SAME. I think the student chapter experience would be number one, assuming it's a good one. The summer camp program for high school students would be number two, and again, we have the largest scholarship fund in SAME. That's number three. That's a little harder because of the manner in which we, New York City Post, manages the fund, which could be different from you. But yeah, we can address those as we go along. Any thoughts, Ben or Corey or anybody out there before we move on? All right. So we're back to, again, here's the how on the playing field. So when we talk about how in anything, we're talking about the below the line. So what I'm going to do is talk about some of the things we do at the New York City Post and our West Point student chapter. This is the case study of the below the line. This is what works for us. As we present these, we're not saying that they will work for you. We're saying, take a look, and if they make sense, maybe they can work for you, and we can get into the whys and things like that. But if you have another approach that differs, jump on in and we'll talk about that. All right. So here's some of the basic hows from New York City and West Point, our interaction. We have very, very strong communication links. Now, this statement right here, posts and their chapters need people who can serve as a conduit between both. That is an above the line, and you'll notice I have that at the bottom to recount it. So, but that's above the line. This applies, I think, to everybody. This role can be served by student chapter advisor, the young members committee, or others. That's below the line. So we've got right here in one little statement a combination of what's above the line, what's good for everybody, and then a flexibility of below the line. All right. Events. Again, this is stuff that we do. Strong communication links through events. That's above the line. All right. Everybody should be doing that. posts in their chapters can hold joint events. Anybody can do that. That's above the line. What do we do at New York and West Point, which is below the line? New York City and West Point, we host a very popular annual cadet engineer dinner. It's held in Eisenhower Hall at West Point, and it's to regale those West Point students who have chosen the engineering branch upon graduation. The planning and execution of the event is and has been for the last few years a joint effort by members of the local Post Young Members Committee as well as members of the student chapter. And I'm going to defer to Ben in a minute. This has been a very, very popular event, and there were a lot of disappointed people last year when we weren't able to hold it live, because it's really a lot of fun. It's something that we all look forward to. So again, another example of looking at something, having a component that everybody can do, the basic what, and then a validation of the how, which can vary by local post. Ben, I defer. Anything you would add to this?
Yes, I just think that these events not only are an event for our students to participate in, but these are events where we place our students in the leadership roles. So the actual MC for this event, and just to help you have an idea of what we're talking about, how big is this event, almost every single graduate that branches engineers come, so that's 115 or so folks. They bring guests. About an equal number of members from SAME Post come. We have the chief of engineers, 3-star general, who's normally the guest speaker at this event. So a lot of, and then faculty from West Point, beyond those that participate specifically in SAME, but engineer faculty across West Point come. So we're talking around 260 folks, and our student leaders are the MCs for the event and help run it and help run the registration table. And it's those experiences that when they simultaneously in the same year have gone to a scholarship fund dinner dance down in New York City, they see the SAME leaders, the board members and that sort of stuff running the event, and they realize they're doing the same thing, it just at West Point. And so it provides a wonderful parallel where they see that, they understand that, oh, I could participate in that higher level thing. I've done it at West Point before. And I think that's some great opportunities.
Thanks, Ben. Corey, anything you want to add?
Yeah, a couple things. Just based upon experience, going back to your first point of people, I found it very helpful with the student chapter mentor to be a young professional. They can relate very well because they have, ideally come out of that role, or in the recent history, come out of that role of being a part of a student chapter. So we found that valuable at our post. That was a kind of a transition we made whenever I graduated and became part of the post. I volunteered to do that because I knew the students. I mean, I just graduated with some or some that were behind me. So I think that could be a best practice. I'm not saying that's exclusive, because we have fellows that are student chapter mentors. I saw Buddy Barnes on here, and he's been a mentor to me since I was a student, and he was a student chapter mentor halfway across the country. Met him at national events that this COI put on. So some of it's personality fit in finding the right person that has that passion for students, and the mentoring, I think, is maybe more key than even the age. So that's one point on people. Like you guys said with events, what we do at Huntington that has been very successful in the past is we hold a engineering career day during Engineers Week for high school sophomores interested in STEM careers, and we get our student chapters involved, our members involved in a couple ways as kind of guides throughout the different sessions that we have, and they get that interaction. We've had them serve on the panel to discuss with the high school students of why they chose engineering. We try to get that to be diverse as well, with females and minorities and stuff that can kind of relate to different demographics. We typically the night before hold a social with the post and its members, as inviting the student members to come out to that, to network with the post members. And then something we did at a student chapter level that started when I was president of this chapter was we started to host a technical conference for professionals of the post and of the tri-state area here, in which we had presenters come in and give technical talks, and PDHs were available. And we had significant support from the post to put that on via speakers, financial support, and others. And that was something that is now in its 11th or 12th year. I'm starting to date how long I've been out of college or beyond. That's very successful. And that is a student-led conference that serves also as a fundraiser, but also as networking with local professionals. So those are things we have done in the sake of events that have been very successful, as below the line type things.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Anybody else out there want to contribute some thoughts on things that you may have done that are similar to or maybe different from this on how we can facilitate those strong communications. And again, going back to the original point, what we're saying is we're talking about the basic assumption of, by doing all this stuff in the various interactions with our young student members, we are increasing the chance that when they graduate, they're going to become professional members. So I'm going to keep reminding us of that, because sometimes you're going to say, oh, you're going off the track, what is it, how is this related? And I'm going to keep saying and this is my assumption, you don't all have to agree, this setting the table while the young member, the student, is in that experience is going to get them more so than stuff that we can do after the fact without a good experience. So you can disagree. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing, because I think that definitely if you have college students who've had a great experience with SAME, they are going to look for that next opportunity. Right. But that means that they're halfway there, but now they need to have the great experience when they arrive at a new post. Because many of them, especially undergraduates, may not transition or be a part of the post that they're currently near at school. So what are some things that we can keep in mind? What are some things that can be done at the post level to hook someone? I mean, you guys in New York can't just be assuming that you're hooking the academy graduates. You've got to have some things going on at the post level to hook people who have graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and then they move to New York for that first job. What do you do to hook them?
And actually, Mike, if I can, I'm just saying, because I think you said something, Janine, special. I would argue our New York City Post doesn't think they're actually getting any of our cadets. Because no one stays here in this New York City. What they're doing is they're setting the conditions where they want to be in part of the organization when they go somewhere else. Now, you just made me think, what could I do better? So what I could do better is, if we know, which we do, we know where everyone's first duty assignment is. You're really making me think about this. What we could do is we could find what is the student chapter, not the student chapter, what is the post chapter that is nearest the post that our graduates are going to. And now how do I, before they leave, how do I connect them with that person to say, continue on? I think that's a huge thing that I can do that I've never thought of before until this conversation. So this has just made this whole conference worthwhile to me. Number two.
Ben, jot that down, because that actually let me answer a slide at the end. Go ahead.
Okay. And then the other thing is when we even talked about for our freshmen that just were signing up, we told them this is not just some random club that's in the university. This is an actual organization. I've been a member since 1997. This is real. And the relationships we build, this is real. So that's a mantra that we need to be hitting at all of our different meetings throughout their 4 years here, so they recognize that this goes on beyond college. So just 2 points about that. Janine, thank you. You got me fired up on that one.
Good. I
Yeah,
love
this is Corey. Let me jump back in too, because this has now become worthwhile as well, and I'm sure Ann's nodding her head as well, because now we have somebody else, Ben, that I'm going to coordinate with, because this is a gap that I have noticed for a while, is the transition from student member to young professional, and something that my 2 predecessors ago, or 3, whenever I was the chair of college outreach, tried to capture. And now Ben has told me he knows, at least with cadets, where their first station is. So I think one of the challenges that we have is, for whether they're going into the service or private or public, it's sometimes determining where students are going to land and how can we best set them up for success and having a receiving post. And so those are discussions that Ann and I have been having. I owe her a phone call already to start that conversation, but that is an effort as the young professional chair that I have set for myself over the next couple of years to work on. So Ben, I will, and Ann, we should coordinate with Ben as well to help. I think he could be a part of the puzzle to help us figure this out. So
yeah, that definitely sounds like a great idea.
And to add to that, I know Emerald Coast Post, they do that with their scholarship recipients. Once they issue scholarships to their local students, they match them with a post near the school they're going to. I don't know if they go as far as connecting if there's any student chapters in those schools. That would be another great connection. But at the very least, I know there are posts that likely are doing that with scholarship recipients that should be included in this strategy.
All right. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts out there? Okay. We are going to hear more about this, Janine, on things that the New York City Post does that answer your question very specifically. And yes, Ben has made it clear, we're doing these great things with little chance of actually having any of these cadets having their first assignment in New York City or the New York metropolitan area. 99% of them will go off and scatter to all 4 corners of planet Earth. So certainly one could deduce that we are doing this for the good of the greater organization with very little benefit to ourselves. But you know what? Occasionally they come back as commanders of local Corps of Engineer districts and or professors at West Point, and we end up getting them back. So, all right, let's move on. Again, some more hows. Outside relationships in the AOR, in the area of responsibility. And, this is both a WAT, which is an above the line. The above the line says, go out there and try your best to facilitate strong communication links with relevant outside organizations that can help. All right, that's the above the line. The below the line is, how do you do it? So we'll talk about what we're doing in the New York City area. Now, many posts or student chapters are in close proximity to military organizations. We have West Point. I think the Denver Post would have the U.S. Air Force Academy. Baltimore Post has the U.S. Naval Academy. Boston Post has the Coast Guard Academy, which I think is up there in New England. So many of us have proximity to major organizations. So by inviting representatives of these, and of course we also have the Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Air Force, as well as the areas of learning. So here in New York, we've got the New York District Corps of Engineers, the North Atlantic Division, we've got West Point. So we're actually blessed. We're very lucky. We're sitting here in the middle of, within a radius of 30 miles, we have all kinds of very, very rich opportunities. We also have other engineering organizations like ASCE, the CMEE, and a whole host of other professional organizations. There are opportunities from those varying organizations, joint events, inviting key players from those organizations to serve as a guest speaker at one of our events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by inviting representatives of these nearby organizations can help forge a longer term positive relationship with the with the local chapter. And again, we're talking about chapters. Again, there will be other applicability to other student level engagements, but we're talking about what we're actually doing. So for example, the last New York City Post virtual evening meeting, which is open to all of our West Point cadets, as well as just about anybody who got the link, featured the new division and district commanders from the Corps of Engineers. And so we had a very, very good evening and an opportunity for student members to be part of a post meeting, and they saw, the business that they are actually members. When we eventually get back to live meetings, we actually meet at the Harvard Club of New York City, which is a pretty nice venue. We will always have a number of student members coming down to the meeting as long as they're available. And generally, Ben or one of our other chapter folks will accompany a number of the students. So we do provide continuous exposure of the students. That also extends to our summer camp attendees. We invite them, and some of our scholarship awardees are invited to some of our meetings. So I think that's the what do you do, which is provide the opportunity for the students to participate in the full post operation. How? Lots of different ways. That's below the line, and we leave to you. Any thoughts or comments, Ben, Corey, or anybody out there?
I did want to mention that one thing that I really like doing is as Mike had said, I'm on the board of directors for the New York City Post because of being the senior faculty advisor for our student chapter. And I'll just tell on a personal level, it's so rewarding to me to make me feel so connected with our higher headquarters, so to speak. And so that's very special to me. What that also does is then another faculty member is in charge of actually bringing the students out, because on the same days that are the chapter meetings are the board meetings. So the board meetings, I go to that. The cadets come up with all the other New York City Post members that want to come to the evening meeting. That includes, regular business and then it's some wonderful guest speaker. And so that's where our cadets get to do that socializing and that sort of thing. And I just join them and then we all travel back together. So that's a nice way to make sure that the student chapters are very much connected and know that they have input and are valued with their parent post.
Not to mention that occasionally the Post comes up and visits the student chapter as well.
With you specifically being the January guest speaker.
Yeah. But it could be anybody else.
And we have you on the schedule that we passed out already. Mike, are you available on the 25th of January of 2022? I already put you on.
No, I'll ask my wife, but I'll give you a conditional yes. What he's saying is that once a year, what I try to do is I actually go up and spend one of the chapter meetings, and I'll do a briefing. Last few times, it's a different briefing every time, and I actually have an agenda that's geared toward West Point, which is focusing on a combination of projects that I'm working on stateside with my present employer, which is New Jersey Transit, their major infrastructure transportation projects, but relating them to projects that I was involved with in the overseas military environment, and showing the cadets that there's a linkage between the two, and that what they're being taught, even though it's primarily targeted toward their becoming a military officer, is absolutely applicable to a future that they may have in the private sector. So that's just one example, i.e. turning that into a above the line, below the line. The above the line is have people come over and give great topics of interest to the students. The below the line is obviously lots of ways of doing that, and you can gear them to your particular circumstance. Again, here it is. I got ahead of myself. So we do regularly visit the West Point chapter. We'll have guest serve as guest speakers. And as we pointed out, we've got the annual cadet engineer dinner. And a lot of the guest speakers at that dinner are principals from the New York City Post, as well as General Schrodel is always there if he can make it. We generally have the chief of engineers. So this is a big deal event, and there are other places and other opportunities to do commensurate events that could work out for you. All right.
You know what I like about what you're describing here is that it brings the student, and I've harped on this before. It's emphasizing the member part of student member, that it's bringing them into the fold. It's making them, and I'll share a quick anecdote with a discussion we had on staff where we were talking about students at SBC, and I think we've reset some of those expectations, but there was some initial reaction of thoughts of students running amok in the expo hall, that these were students that were just kind of willy-nilly touring the expo hall versus, seeing students as emerging professionals. These are folks that are thinking about societal issues. They're doing research. Their brains are in that innovative mindset. And, I think we need to capitalize on them being part of our member spectrum. So I like how you're describing all of this as we're not just seeing you as the bottom rung. We're seeing you as the foundational piece of our industry, and I like how you portray that to them.
Yeah, and as I say, this is really right from the ground, actual stuff that we're doing. This is not up there. It's not high theoretical. We're doing it. We've been doing this, I would say, for at least the last 5 years in various ways, shapes, or forms, and it does seem to be working. The events are popular, and the cadets are. I make it a point to engage the cadets that I meet. I have a lot of fun with them. I think they're having fun with us. I think they're being enriched by being at the meeting, and I'm certain that any student, whether it's from a military academy or just any student chapter, exposed to a similar situation, would react in the same way. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. If these basic ground rules are followed. A good event, great speaker, opportunity for engagement. It can't not work in my view. All right, so
and if I can, Mike, one thing about the engagement is that one of the rules that we have with our cadets is whenever we go to New York City, and even when we have the engineer dinner where it's a lot of cadets, we deliberately do the placement where if it's us going to New York City, like the Harvard Club, the rule is you can't have more than 2 cadets at one table. They have to intermingle. Even when they're there during the social hour, I tell them you can't have more than 3 cadets together. You've got to go and engage because it's all about networking, and you can't do that if you're just talking to yourselves. And they buy into that 100%, and the post is great. The same thing happens when it's the engineer dinner and it's on West Point. We deliberately intersperse the New York City Post members with our cadets at every table to ensure that, just like Eddie said that so beautifully, it's that idea of, they're foundational in the organization. So that way they have that exposure with all of the senior folks, the more professional folks in our organization.
Yeah. Absolutely. So at this point, I thought it would be a good place to stop for a little bit, take our breath, catch our breath a little bit, and then and I'm going to sit back and give give all of you a chance to chime in. Tell me if I'm all wet. Tell me if this stuff makes sense. Jump in with your thoughts of ways that you might be able to implement this in your local situation. Talk about other forms of student interactions other than a student chapter environment. So any thoughts out there? Anything, any observations you want to say, want to bring up to the table? Anything in the comments chat room that we should be aware of, Janine?
I'm not seeing any comments so far
Get
or
the,
any questions.
They're not telling you get rid of that guy, please. I've had enough. Nothing like that in there.
No, not yet.
Okay, that's good to know.
I'm going to raise a question because I have familiarity. My background, I was at ASCE for 7 years, and they have a very robust younger member program. And, I know at ASCE anyway, younger members are kind of like a different breed sometimes than the senior members of a post. And again, putting myself in that mindset of the person who has just recently graduated and I'm coming to the new city, I have the job, I've had a great experience with SAME. I see that there's a meeting coming up. Do you employ some of the techniques that are used like in Toastmasters, like, oh, there's a face I don't recognize. Let me really, especially a young face I don't recognize, let me really make a point of saying hello to them. Are there any mixers that younger members or the young professionals do at the post level? Because one of the things that we know is that younger people, younger members, there's like a switch. They're often looking for their social life and their work life to intermix. And I'm just wondering, how that looks at the post level.
Want to take a stab at that one? I mean, I have a thought on that, but go ahead.
Somebody has their hand up.
Yeah, hand up. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
For our group, I do membership, so I also reach out to the students on a monthly basis, and they get a special invite that says, if you want to come and you're not comfortable, let me know, and I will be sure to have myself or someone to escort you through, and introduce you around. And basically, we don't want them to come and be afraid to come because they don't know anybody, and they're coming into a group of adults, and not that they're not adults, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And then we are actually having a young members event coming up next month, I think it is, and it's going to be at Topgolf, and all of the students are invited. And we're revitalizing our chapters, so right now we don't know how many members we have or who will show up, but we invite them to make sure that they feel welcome and something fun, and there as the young members, they can meet our young members, but then also if you come to a post meeting, there's going to be some of us older members, and we do make it a point to make sure that everybody knows that they're a guest and they're a young member or student member, so that whoever's table they're sitting at or whoever may want to talk to them can make a point to do that.
I really liked the way that people were talking before about spreading the folks out so that they talked to other people.
Yeah, this is something we do all the time. So, a typical meeting, Ben would show up with a couple of his co-staff members and maybe 5 or 6 of the cadets, and we will scatter them throughout the room. A typical meeting of our post could be anywhere from 50 to 75 people in a room with maybe 5 to 8 tables of 10. So we're all together, but yet there's that opportunity at the individual table for a more intimate ability to have a conversation. Our meetings are generally full dinners and dessert. There will be a little bit of post business at the beginning of the meeting, followed by usually we do have a high powered guest speaker, someone of importance in the STEM industry. Again, we're fortunate in the New York area to have so many major infrastructure organizations that we're able to get these kinds of high-powered guest speakers that are relevant, that are doing work on things that will be relevant to most of these, to these students. So that combination of a great guest speaker, a nice meeting venue, a real meeting, that is an actual full post meeting, the scattering of the students so that they're not able to just get together and ignore what's going on. They're forced to engage, and most of them genuinely enjoy it, as well as the members of the post enjoy engaging with the students. In that atmosphere, we very often get secondary and tertiary effects. Contacts are made. So many of the people who attend our meeting are executives from major firms that are based in the New York area, and so there are very often contacts and relationships that come out of those meetings, and that's a wonderful, wonderful benefit to this. So, I mean, that's kind of what we do. Other thoughts, questions?
Yeah, this is Dick Kohanek from San Antonio.
Hey, Dick.
Couple of things we've done in the past that seem to be very successful is that we had our young professionals do a joint meeting with the students at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And the young professionals paid for the lunch. We had lunch. We talked about SAME, and student chapters. And then the students arranged a tour of the Texas Sustainable Energy Research Institute on the UTSA campus. And in that particular facility, you get to hear students that are working under grants with faculty advisors talk about their projects. So a 2-hour tour, and there was a lot of interaction between young professionals and other members of the post and the students. Then this is another one that Eddie participated in. Every year except last year for the COVID, the University of Texas San Antonio has a engineering barbecue cook-off, and organizations and AEC companies sponsor students to either participate in a cookout or have booths there. We sponsored a SAME table at the event, and we actually signed up students to be members of SAME and the student chapter. One of the big things was we handed them one of our volunteer t-shirts if they signed up on the spot. We had a computer there they could sign up and join. Another couple of things that we did is sort of a reverse of what you talked about. We invited some graduate students and their faculty advisors from UTSA to make a presentation at our post meeting. And that was one of the most well-attended meetings. There was a lot of interaction between the graduate students and members of companies in the audience. And then we did it at a lower level. One of our high schools has a rocketry club that students sign up and they get a certificate. They actually build rockets. They test at White Sands Missile Range. and they had 12 students make a presentation on all what they did to construct a rocket. And that's probably one of our highest attendance meetings we've ever had. So it's kind of a reverse of what you said. Instead of going to them, we brought them to us. So those were kind of things that worked out.
Oh, they all sound great. They really sound great. And Dick, I have to say that accent sounds more like Boston than San
Yes,
Antonio to me. Okay, I'm reading you correctly, am I not? Okay.
I was born in Lowell, Mass.
All right. That
I went to Lowell
explains it.
Tech, and I went to University of Mass at Amherst for graduate.
Like you, my roots of my English accent does not escape me. Most people can figure out that I'm a New Yorker, and no matter how hard I try to disguise it in mixed company, but it's good. Great town, by the way, San Antonio. I was down there for a conference, got to see the Alamo, and you've got that. I think you've got that river walk over there. It was really nice. Good stuff. Any other thoughts?
One thing that I thought you made me think of was a great point about having it where the students highlight the research that they're doing for the post members. And I forgot to mention, one of the things that we do with the engineer dinner is we actually get some of those graduating seniors, in order to have a much higher level discussion at the tables. We have about 10 present the day after. We always schedule the engineer dinner the night before projects day, where across the entire school, the entire university, we have cadets that present their research, whether it be from capstone design or independent research or whatever. And we ask for about 10, or we get that, about 10 of our graduating engineers, future engineer officers, to, and it's all volunteer, who want to highlight their research. And then they're actually the pre-event for any of the New York City Post members that come early. They actually present to those members. And then that means that at the dinner, when they're talking and having conversation, there's a lot more substance, because they could say, oh, I saw you presenting on cold fusion, or whatever it is that they're going to talk about. And then those conversations get much better, and it highlights that they are that foundation of that next generation. They're going to be Army officers, but by golly, it's really exciting to see that research that they're doing there. And so I think you made me think that that's another nice way to kind of combine multiple events to make something really meaningful.
I want to follow something that you said that applies to a different grouping of students. Now, I was mentioning that the New York City Post has always supported sending, God bless you, 2 or 3 students to the STEM summer camp. One of the things we do is that when they return, we invite them to the first or second post fall meeting, and ask them to come up and just give us a quick 5-minute presentation of what they did. And invariably, these students get back, they're getting exposed, like the cadets from West Point. They're sitting around, and they're talking to people, and they're getting to interact, and they're excited to tell us about how well they did and what they did, and so this is another path. It's not the student chapter, but it's another grouping of young members. And again, the common thread, the above the line thread, is getting that interaction between the student and the post in the physical setting. Get them to the post meeting and get them to interact. The hows, we heard lots of different options, and I'm sure there are many more. So,
yeah, if I can, this is
stuff.
Corey. I had one more, although
yeah.
Eddie and Ann may smack me at SBC for even saying this, but student, like on the national level, the student chapter workshops, and speaking from my days as a student, that was a big reason of why I stayed involved, because I got to see SAME on a little bit larger scale. So we were talking earlier about having students at SBC, having students at JETSI. I think that would be very worthwhile from a, it's kind of like an above the line because it's managed by maybe the COIs, but having those events where students can gather together and discuss issues or having the same type of forum that we're having, right? And having that in a location that kind of gets them exposed to SME on a national level. I found that as a student very worthwhile and one of the primary reasons I stayed involved, because I got to see what SME is all about. So again, you know, Eddie and Ann may smack me for bringing that up, and maybe Ron can speak to that because Ron and Buddy both were part of those, and that's where I met both of those individuals, and now, you know, whether they know it or not, they're mentors to me. So just wanted to bring that up as a kind of a higher scale from a SAME strategic standpoint, consideration of that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go a step farther there and say, you know, if we're going to be in Atlanta for SBC, and there's the Georgia Institute of Technology that hosts our STEM camp through the Atlanta Post, at a bare minimum, if we can't get somebody from SAME in front of a group of Georgia Tech students at Georgia Tech, you know, we don't, even if we did nothing else about bringing them in, at the very minimum, we should be able to have somebody go, you know, be in front of a group of engineering students at their school to talk about us as an organization, you know, and then work up from there. You know, I would see that as the lowest of the hanging fruit we have available to us to introduce and engage students in who we are as a society.
All right. Any other thoughts? This is great. This is terrific. All right. Let's see what surprises lurk ahead. All right. So what I thought, and that pretty much, you know, covers it. So I said, all right, we've had this great discussion. I've put forth my assumptions, and I know yesterday there was a great discussion about the you know, how well student chapters are doing. So I said, all right, you know, I wanted to score ourselves, and this is just, I'm going to do this really quickly. I said, you know, the way I think Ben and I have approached this at New York is we're not really sitting there looking at the metrics every day. Oh, are we doing metric 1, 2, 3? We're kind of looking at this as a systems approach, and we're saying what makes sense in terms of the interaction, and we're just doing it. You know, we're kind of, you know, forging ahead and doing stuff. So I said, let's see if that innate common sense that we think we're practicing in New York and West Point, when we score it up against the metrics, let's see how we're doing. So I'm going to run through these real quickly, and you can do the same. You know, ask yourself the same question relative to your post. So this, you know, you can think to yourself, how does this fit with the above the line, below the line process, and how you're doing. So I'm going to go through this real quickly. All right, so, and this goes back to again, relating back to what we're saying here, is that by setting a great foundation for student post interactions, you are ensuring that a great larger proportion of students will join as professional members when they leave. So let's see how we're doing. All right, make connections with sponsoring posts for speakers, speed mentoring, service activities, wounded warrior vet activities. We're saying mostly yes. All right, we have not been doing specific wounded warrior activities other than we consciously raise funds for wounded warrior initiatives, and we donate that money. But in terms of discrete activities, we have not been doing that. Push for resources.
For this chapter, we actually support Habitat for Humanity. So that, and a lot of the Habitat for Humanity in this region are addressing homes for, you know, previous military and that sort of stuff, but not specifically focused, which I like how you're saying that, Mike.
I mean, we're donating to, for example, we were looking for a good, you know, we'll raise a few $100s with every meeting for wounded warrior pursuits. And what we were trying to do is find an educational targeted opportunity to donate that money. But what we have done instead more recently is we've been looking at the tunnels to the towers because they really specifically aid wounded warriors and give them a home. So it's very, very related in what it's doing, same as Habitat for Humanity. So that's why I gave ourselves a mostly yes. All right, push for resources, pizza support for 4 meetings a year. No, not 4, but we will give pizza support for the 1 student meeting. Travel support to the JETC, yes, we do that. Generally at least 2 students, 1 faculty member. So we're doing most of that. And we do find other ways. If West Point does come back and say, look, we need a little bit of financial assistance. Fortunately, I do have some delegated authority to advance some funding for keyed activities. If it's something a little bit more substantial, we'll take it to the board. And I've never found it a problem in getting the post board of direction to support financial support. Ben, would you agree with that?
Yes, and actually, I would say that the biggest support that we get is being able to come to the Harvard Club, for example. We can bring, sometimes we brought up to 8 cadets. That's all covered by the post. I mean, that's amazing. And not only the cadets, but the faculty are also covered. That's a huge help. So yeah, that happens like once a quarter. So those are, I say yes with the big bolds on that one.
Yeah. So this is one where I would argue, that the specific every word of the language is not what we're doing, but we're meeting the goal by doing certain things below the line that are not specifically precisely like the metric. Push for supportive students to attend post-work. Yes, we've been saying that, been doing it for years. Recruit companies to support tours, internships, students at the post meeting, and travel to JETC. I'm going to say mostly yes. We serve as a conduit. The post serves as a conduit. We get the kids to the meetings. We let them sit at different tables, and they find that they're making natural connections to members at the table. Internships don't really apply because none of our West Point cadets have to be concerned about an internship. They're already busy every summer. So that's not applicable. However, occasionally the STEM summer camp students, by virtue of having come to the meeting, have been able to make connections and secure an internship with some of the companies. So I think we are providing the basic lay of the land to facilitate this happening. All right. Have a fellow mentor, junior chapter mentor. Yes, we have that. Encourage an officer having a seat on the board. Yes, we've absolutely been that way. It's built into the structure of the New York City Post. So we've got that. Encourage student members to be on post committees. Again, that could happen. There's nothing that forbids that. However, the logistics and the rigor of the West Point program would really make that very difficult to do in practice. But there is nothing that would stop that. So I would say that we come close to meeting this in the interactions of the cadets with our young members in the planning for the annual cadet engineering dinner. Ben, would you agree with that? All right, he gave me a thumbs up. All right, so.
Well, and to add to that, well, to model this, the same kind of best practice, we are recruiting a student representative on the college outreach leadership team. And as we also hopefully staff up the virtual student chapter with a leadership team, there could be some connection between that group and the college outreach steering committee.
Right. Okay. Attend post meetings, absolutely yes. Again, the locating, service, wounded warrior, vet events, that's not something we've been able to figure out how to do. However, as Ben said, there is indirect support to wounded warriors and vets. Certainly, if we had the knowledge of any local wounded warriors or vets that we could get our hands on, we would certainly facilitate having them attend one of our meetings. But we just haven't figured out how to do that. But there's nothing in our operations that would stop that. We already talked about the pizza and travel support. We do that. 2 student leaders to the leadership workshop. We paid for that for years when we were doing the January student leader workshop. You know, we're in for that all the way through. Ben mentioned earlier the harbor inspection that is hosted by the Army Corps of Engineers, and so we do regularly. That happens every year. They'll either visit projects of interest in and around New York Harbor or visit nearby infrastructure projects of note. That has been going on for years. That's a standard part of our operation. 6 or more students at each meeting. Ben spoke to that, so we're doing that. Dedicated scholarships for members of the student chapter. The answer is yes, we have that, but it's not done consciously. The New York City Post, the way we do our scholarships is that we invite individuals to invest a $15,000 amount of money. That $15,000 donation allows them to identify a school of their choice, and that school shall receive in perpetuity an annual stipend from that initial donation. And that's how we do it. So by virtue of that having existed for, 50 years, I know there are at least a half a dozen of those scholarships earmarked for West Point, and they shall go on in perpetuity. And we'll be adding 1 or more additional scholarships in memory of Colonel Bud Griffiths, who was the chair of our scholarship fund, the president of our scholarship fund, who recently passed away. Some of you mentioned that, you know, Tiffany, his daughter, his granddaughter, actually, not his daughter, his granddaughter. Internships, again, that's not really applicable to West Point. However, we do try to tap into the STEM summer campers. So I think all in all, you know, in fact, I'm not going to answer this. I'm going to ask you guys, how do you guys and gals, looking at that, how would you think we're doing from your perspective relative to these guidelines? And I will sit back and open myself to any critique at this point. All right. No critiques. All right. I'll give you 3, 2, 1. No critiques. All right. Great. Any compliments? 3, 2, 1. No comment. All right. I'll take that as not too bad. You guys are doing okay in New York. All right. Would everybody agree? Raise your hands. Are we doing okay in New York? All right. No thumbs down for New York. All right.
So
Mike,
Mike, with these kinds of activities, I think the next step for us, you know, in contemplating these tactics is the what comes next, the kind of the so what from this. Do you feel like you all have a good sense of return on these various activities, or would that be something that, you know, like some of our other posts, would need to be a new effort to track?
Do you mean like return on investment, or do you mean?
Yes, like if any of these folks, you know, even anecdotally, students that have become professionals through the many years that you've been investing in these scholarships and in these experiences at West Point, you know, do you know West Pointers that are now in the field?
Okay, perfect example. Yeah, here you go, Eddie. Perfect example. And I was going to say this at the end, but I'll just say it right now because we're talking about this. Is that first of all, you know, how Mike was talking about, we have these different things. I mean, like we said, we just had the We just had club night, so I know you can't probably see too easily, but there's the fall semester, there's the spring semester, and this is our battle rhythm. Like we just have activities that are in there, not too much, just the right amount. And when we say just the right amount, this is a starting point. The cadets can scrap it completely if they want to. They have ownership of everything on here. And that's, I think, how you keep the student chapter active and appropriate, is that they have to have the ownership to do that. The thing that we do that leads to what Eddie's talking about with, like, are we seeing this return? Well, part of what we've just done recently, and it started right before COVID and we maintained it through COVID, we actually have an industry advisor who is a junior member in our New York City Post. So on our student chapter, they're actually part of our student chapter. So we have an industry advisor who's part of that. And that they come to the meetings just like any of the faculty advisors, and they provide that connection. They help with the dinner dance. The leaders that we have that graduate, we have, here's your return on investment, which I think we can't have a better example of this. So Adrian Barraza, who was a former chapter president, student chapter president, was even the MC at one of these engineer dinners, graduated, went engineers. So he's a Corps of Engineer officer for the future, which is very exciting, in Ranger School right now, but we have him scheduled for October. He is going to be virtually calling in and being a guest speaker for our student chapter, talking about what it means to be an engineer. He just finished Ranger School, what it is to be connected with the local SAME chapter. I'm getting chills talking about this. The other thing we did was one of our most amazing junior faculty members, advisors for our SAME chapter, Nathaniel Sheehan. I think you might know that name. He's amazing. He left here. He went to Egypt for a year. When he was in Egypt, when we were all virtual, he was one of our guest speakers. He was our first guest speaker for the event. And so it's not only the return on investment for the students, but if we have a student chapter, what is that return on investment on the faculty members that are participating? Does it invigorate them to be more active and participate? And I think those are two good examples that show that.
No, those are great. And I think, just getting that level, I think we talked at the college outreach COI, can't remember if it was our last call or the XC call, that, we're going to need to do a concerted effort to create profiles for all of these anecdotes. We've used Sophia Gull as an example on a lot of literature. She's all over the website, but that's one student representing one type of experience. I think something we'll need to take on either as a COI or a combination with the staff is how to document these anecdotes. And then the next level would be to get it more quantitative. What are our numbers? How many of these kinds of anecdotes are we able to point to? But it's great to hear that.
All right. Any other thoughts? Let's see what else we got. We're coming close to the end. For those of you who would like these sheets, my intent was, and I forgot to tell you at the beginning, if you have this sheet at home, print it up, and as you are taking notes and suggestions, I jotted a few things down. I offer this as something that you can use for yourself as you're solving problems, and being mindful of your solution not being so prescriptive that it is not flexible. So I try very hard to think along the lines of this sheet in everything I do. My aim in management and in my work, in what I do with SAME and what I've done with the Corps of Engineers as a manager, is to provide the high-level guidance that solves the problem while preserving as much freedom as possible to take into account all of the different ways that an entity can innovate in the overall solution of the problem. So I present this not just as a specific answer to what we're doing here, but as a general thought process that you may find useful, and I hope you do. All right, so we've kind of done this already, but any other any thoughts, any feedback from the comments from the chat box? Any open thoughts from anybody on anything?
I had another question. You're talking about having a evening virtual meeting in New York.
Mhm.
Did that work out better for attendance by the students or not?
I didn't see, and Ben, I didn't count the number of cadets. I don't think it made a significant difference. And
Nope.
when it comes to that, it also has to do with the particular day and time. If it might be a particularly inconvenient night, we may not get students. But Ben, I'll let you tackle that one.
I'll say that when we did the evening meetings, because they weren't in person, they wound up being a little earlier. They were closer to around like
Right.
17:30 or
That's
so.
right.
Well,
That's
that is
right.
the middle of our cadets' drill time, and that's what. So we had at least one of our student leaders that was there because their drill day was the opposite day, so they were able to attend. We actually had a number of our faculty members that are part of our student chapter. They attended. But as far as the students, it was a decrease in number because it wasn't when it normally was, which would be after the day.
Right.
So that was that impact.
I would say, and again, I can't. This is anecdotal. This is my gut. I think the numbers would have been a little bit better had the meeting occurred at its normal time. But I would say not much better, because I think there's a much greater allure for the students to physically be in the room, seeing and shaking hands. There is an attractive value to that. So on balance, it's probably equivalent. But for those who would say, well, let's not have live meetings because COVID, and obviously we're in that boat right now. But I still think when it comes to the students, there's a tremendous value in having them be in the room, to be able to talk across the table. There's an excitement there that you just can't get on a Zoom call or an MS Teams call. That's my personal feeling. I defer to any of you who may feel differently.
Hi, I'm. Can you hear me? I'm Vivian Gu, and I'm
Hi.
hi, and I'm one of the members of the Oxnard Ventura Post, which is very small. And I was wondering, what's the size of your organization? I think it's great, but we don't have, a Navy Academy. We have a NJROTC close by in a high school, and
Right.
I'm thinking, because I'm the STEM coordinator, scholarship, et cetera, when you have a small committee. And I'm thinking our club is so small, but I was thinking maybe I could ask them if they were interested, if I have like 3 people, to maybe start a high school SAME for the NJROTC side of it. And I do have officers that probably would, Navy officers that would volunteer. So what is the size of your organization? Because when I see them next week, I want to tell them, this is great. I think you're doing a great job.
Well, I'm going to defer to Eddie for part of this, but I'll tell you what I think. I think I wouldn't be concerned about the numbers. I would agree with Joe Schrodel. If you've got a group of 2, 3, 5 that want to do something constructive together, go ahead and do it. That would be my personal point of view. But by the numbers, New York City Post is considered a large post, so our total numbers of members are probably in the 525 to 550 range. However, you might say, oh wow, you have all those people, but when you look at the map of New York City, from the pinpoint of where we hold our meetings, our metropolitan area is a 25 or 30 mile radius and encompasses, 15 million people, kind of like, you're kind of on the northern fringe of Los Angeles. As far as West Point, obviously it's a large academy. There are probably, 150 to 200 cadets who have chosen the engineer regiment, Ben, or
Right.
correct
So we
number?
have 115 about every year that choose the engineer regiment, but the members of SME, they're not just all engineers, as SME is not just all engineers, right? It's everyone. And so in fact, at club night, I told everyone it's very inclusive. You don't need to be American, military, or an engineer to be part of this
Right.
club. So that
right.
appealed to
I was
our
actually
folks.
I was gonna counsel. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was
Go
going to say, but for our club, West Point has 4,400 undergraduate students. For our club, I just pulled it up right now. We have this plus the 30. So we have about 115 members on our roster, counting the new 39 plebes, our freshmen that just signed up yesterday.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked, excuse me, I wanted to add one more thing. The reason I asked too, because I'm also a member of the Honolulu SAME, because we have a big one there. But that one has all different parts of the military. We have everything from the Marines to the Navy, Army. The one that I'm in, that I'm really active, because I live here part-time and there part-time. The one that I'm really active with is all Navy, probably. But I have a problem with the Navy because somebody in the legal side told them that they can't get really active with SME. So that's kind of like, I have to look for a captain or somebody that's really, concerned and is going to get out of the Navy to
Well,
kind of give
you
me a
guys have
chance.
to, but you know what we always like to say about the Navy is beat them.
Well, I worked for them like 40 years, so I'm be loyal.
I
Vivian,
know,
is
I
it-
know.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is
I was
Marilyn.
going to, go ahead, Marilyn, I'm sorry.
I want to make sure that Vivian's aware, like, we do not want to limit this to just JROTC. I think it's very important that we do not limit to those folks. We need to broaden the spectrum of students who are interested in STEM, but even beyond STEM. I mean, I'm not military. I'm not an engineer. I'm an archaeologist. But I've been involved with SAME for the past 10 years. So I think it's important that we do not showcase military related specifically. I think it's important to keep the interest at a broad spectrum to the students in the high school level.
Yeah, well, that's the only.
For us,
Go
I'll
ahead.
say that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that the SME, the reason I'm really involved with the Wainini High, it was easy because it's across the street from the big base. And I've been in SME for 55 years now. And I find it very easy to work with them. And I help them with contests, like the cyber security, the Patriots in the military. And I wanted to give the kids an idea that, and I'm kind of like partial, that being in the military is good. And that's where I'm coming from, besides just that, it's military. But I could also look at an alternative. We have Oxnard College, which is a junior college. It has a full accredited engineering program now for 2 years, and they do go to MIT and all that. And then the one that I wanted to share with you guys later is that I'm also an advisor to mechatronics engineering, which is in Cal State University, the first and only, I think there's only like less than 8 of them in the whole country. And we're doing very well. We're getting, the kids hired by Amazon and all that. And I try to get some of the Wainini kids who are underprivileged to go there if they get selected. But I'm saying, I'm looking at alternatives, which is the best alternative. That's why I've been attending your thing for 3 days. It's very interesting.
I'm going to answer that first. I would say any or all of the above are all wonderful. There's no, if I were sitting in your shoes, there's nothing that would say, oh, this is going to be better than that. I would say if there's if one of those choices sparks you more than the other, then that would be the one. If I were sitting there, I might go into Port Hueneme. By the way, I went for training there for quite a number of years. That was the Naval Construction Lab, and us Corps of Engineer folk who were getting various training in procurement and contracting. We had to take required training. So I actually used to get there during the June gloom time, and we would stay. We figured out how to stay over at the off post and get our non-availability. But there's no right or wrong. I mean, if anybody else wants to jump in there, I would say whichever one gives you more of a spark, or both. If you have a couple of people, say, hey, let's try both. If the two facilities are close enough together, maybe there could be even a collaboration between the two, a joint effort. Anybody else have thoughts
I
on
have
that?
one more thing based on
Yeah.
what you said, though. I have to be real careful. I wanted to say one thing, that my interest. It's what we can get the best interest from them, 3 different groups. And knowing that I actually am an advisor to the mechatronics, which is really going great. I'll share that someday with a speaker. But the point is, those people may not be interested because they're kind of like, high in the sky somewhere. Sometimes they look at AI, okay? They're at that level. And I wanted someone to look at SAME, which I've been a member 55 years now, hanging in there. And I feel that what we do is maybe more attuned to someone who's interested in doing, like you said, the things there. I actually use my own funds and send and treat all of them with the teacher, combined. Is this going to be like cybersecurity? Is this going to interest the kids? And then I will buy a table for them. It's similar to yours, but at a much smaller scale, because that's coming out of my pocket most of the time. But we give them scholarships too, real small scholarships. So I appreciate the time, though.
No, absolutely. All I can say is either of those are great. I can't answer without. I'm not familiar enough with the local community. Obviously, all things being equal, you're probably going to have a better chance of recruiting more military based folk than regular STEM, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. The answer to that can only be known locally. So that would be a judgment call that I would defer to you on deciding. But there are 2 ways of looking at it. Some people would say, I want the challenge of going after Oxnard University. I forgot what it was called, because I want to face. Thank you. I want to face the challenge of getting more of them interested in SAME. Others might say, well, as you pointed out, I have the affinity to the military by virtue of pre-existing relationships. I think I can do better there. There's no right and wrong answer in my view. I
want to look where I can get my support from our post. That's what I'm looking at, and then balancing that would be a criteria. And balancing that, because I tried. I went to university. I'm very close to them, and talked to the student chapter presidents of the computer, getting their PhDs and all that. No one was interested in helping and being a mentor to the high school kids who were the cyber patriots in NJRTC. I don't know if you know this, but the reason we have this all over the United States, the cyber patriots, who are little kids, and and some of them in the uniform of the junior cadets, is because of all our cyber attacks. What we're doing is we're training our own people to become experts in cybersecurity, and they're very smart. But I just needed a mentor, and I went to some of these guys, and they all said, "Yeah, we'll help you," but nobody showed up. That was my problem.
Yeah. That's a tough nut to crack. I mean, I think we all face that in various ways of finding people who are willing to step up and volunteer their time and efforts.
Hey, Vivian.
Thank you for your time.
Vivian, you're going to get a little help from the CAMPS program, because we are working with Quantico, the Marine base there. There's a gentleman who wants to spearhead a cybersecurity based camp based out of Quantico that we're hoping to get it pulled off by next summer.
Oh,
And it would
great.
be a high school camp focused on not just,
Not just
software,
engineering, yeah.
but also infrastructure, security as well. So
Okay.
more to come.
Well, we'll just get along, and I'll get with you later, Ed. Thank you.
All right.
I would like
Any
to
other
offer-
thoughts?
Yep, I would like to
Go ahead.
offer just to food for thought. Our post, I'm with the Omaha Post, has had a STEM program that we're beginning our 28th year, and we have an enormous success rate with our program. Basically, we solicit mentors. I'm a mentor, and I'm not an engineer. I do business development. My background is marketing and such, but I mentor. We have almost all of the schools within the Omaha and surrounding communities involved. We mentor both high school and middle school students. So, for example, I will go out and I will meet with my team that the school solicitator, or whatever you want to call her. Usually it's a teacher. So I've been working with my teacher for several years. And so I'll go out and we'll meet with whatever team she's developed. We have both a class that meets for half a year, and then we have a club that goes throughout the process. And we will get together with the students, explain the process, and they come up with, each one brings a real life problem that they would like to have an opportunity to design a solution for. It can be, a physical building. It can be, we need a road. It can be a product, whatever they feel like designing. And so then we will put them together. They brainstorm. They come up with one idea. And then as a group, they develop a solution. They design the solution. They have to pull proposals together, put in a written proposal. And then every April, we have a whole day of the competition. And the judges are made up of local architects, engineers. We've got core people, we've got VA people that come in that are actually professionals and do the judging. But our mentors are also from the community of the AEC world here in Omaha and the surrounding area. So we get everybody very involved in it. And they're judged on their proposal, their written proposal, and then as well as an actual presentation that they have to give to the judges. And most of my students will say, I don't want to be an engineer, but they've learned how to brainstorm. They've learned how to work as a group. They've learned how to write a proposal. They've learned how to present. There's a whole lot of things that they learn through the program, and it can be scaled down to however you want to fit. I'm not the contact person, but if anyone has questions and wants more information, I can certainly get you that.
Yeah, well, this cybersecurity thing is, if all of you may know, it's been going on for about 3 years now. It's a big deal. It's competing against schools and then going to the state level. And then at the national level, there's a champion. But you have to know 5 different softwares like the back of your hand, because that's what they're using to fight with like in the cyber situation. And the kids do it on their own. And right now they have the person that's a coach. And the coach is the commander in charge of the NJROTC program there. And that's all we were looking for. The missing link was the mentor. So appreciate your volunteering, and I'll talk to him about it and see what he says. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Vivian. Very, very welcome. This is great stuff. And what we're going to be trying to do is have other conversations ongoing. So this is this is not a one and done thing. We're going to be getting together in various forums to keep the ideas flowing and to try to capture good ideas and throw out our problems to each other so that those who have a possible solution can offer it. So keep it coming. Any other thoughts? All right, we're almost there, folks. We're almost there. So, I put this throughout in case you printed this out there. But here we go. Have any ideas next week? That's my joke. In other words, a lot of times I sit through a conference call and I have brain freeze, and then on my way home after the conference is over, I get 50 great ideas that flow in my head. So if you get one of those on your way home tonight, or while you're at home, if you're sitting home working from home, use that little above the line, below the line form, jot it down, and and send it in. Because one of the things we're working on is just aggregating good ideas and putting them in the above the line, below the line category, in the hopes that over time we're going to have a bigger and bigger piece of reference that everybody can use, to make your lives better in this pursuit. Any housekeeping out there?
Hello, Mike. This is Ann. I just had a couple of things I wanted to add to the end.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So for those that don't know me, I'm Ann McMillan. I'm the chair of the College Outreach COI. I just wanted to always put out the call as we have the other few days of volunteers. If you would like to be part of the College Outreach COI leadership team, we're always looking for more folks to join us for all the cool things that we can do. The more people we have, the more things that we can do. So if you want to be part of that, please send me an email or give me a call, and we will get talking. Second, just so everyone knows, the recordings and the PDFs will be on the College Outreach website at some point soon, and we'll probably send a follow-up email after the session to let everyone know when those are available. And lastly, just thank you everyone for attending today in the past 2 days. It's been really great to hear everyone's perspectives and stories and input and suggestions. And if there's anything you need from us, please let us know. The College Outreach COI is here to help you. So if there's something that we can do to assist you, connecting you guys with speakers for student chapters or things like that, or you just have a question and you don't know who to ask, we're here for you and we'll point you in the right direction. So thanks again, and I'm going to turn it back to Mike.
All right. Ben and Corey, any last alibis, anything you want to throw in there before we give one last alibi to the group?
No, wonderfully done, and a pleasure to be here.
All right. Corey, anything?
Just as Ann said, the young professional community of interest is here to help as well. So, I know Ann and I will be talking, and Ben now as well. But, we just hope that we can work together, not only with this COI, but others, to help just provide value to our students. I think there's a lot of value to students. I think I'm a testament to that. Like I said, some of the reasons I stayed involved were a lot of the ideas that were shared today and the events that our posts are doing with our student chapters, the student chapters events, the College Outreach Committee, their continued success and what they're doing. But also, for me, it was more, I received a lot as a scholarship recipient as well. And being involved on the national level as a student, I felt when I got out that it was my duty to give back. And so enriching the STEM pipeline is just something that's near and dear to my heart, and giving back to both SAME and our students, because they're our future leaders. So seeing the gap between students and young professionals, that's something that I want to take on, because we need them for the future of this nation and its national security, but also our organization. So my information can be found on our website as well, or you can contact Eddie and he can send you my way. So, but we're also here to support, and I just thank you for allowing me to be a part of this conversation.
Corey, thanks a lot. And I did see a couple of last minute questions. Somebody just jumped in. Hopefully, Janine, you're catching that. But I want to just say thank you for putting up with my my big mouth and New York accent. It was very enjoyable for me, and it's always great to chat with folks from all across the country that I love very, very much. Reach out to me anytime. I know Ann throws out so many meetings, I can't keep track, and sometimes I have to miss those, but always, if there's a question that you have relative to either the COI, or if you have a question for New York City or West Point, please reach out, and I'd be glad to follow up or talk to you offline. So All right. Any last alibis?
So Mike,
Janine?
I'm going to make mention of the fact that yes, we will be we have been recording this, and so the recordings will be posted to the college outreach webpage on the SAME website, probably within the next week.
All right. That was Daniqua, I think, asked that question. All right. We good, Daniqua? And I hope I pronounced it right. Forgive me if I didn't. All right. All right, gang. Well, I'm getting you out 11 minutes. You're welcome. Getting you out 11 minutes early. I was hoping I'd get you out a little earlier than that, but I hope it was worthwhile. It was for me. And looking forward to seeing you guys and gals at some point in the future.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take good care. Have a great evening.